Rip City, we are so excited to bring to you today a phenomenal group of women from across the Trailblazers organization here in our beautiful Orofino Lounge at the Moda Center. I'm joined here today by 5 amazing women who have had incredible journeys. First, I'm joined here by Ashley Klingskell, Chief Communications and Impact Officer. Next, Allie Stengel, our Director of Events and Operations for the Portland Trailblazers and Rose Quarter. We also have Naira Perez, our Senior Digital Marketing Manager, Melissa Sabak, our Corporate Account Manager, and we have Krista Stout, our Senior Vice President of Innovation and Technology, and I'm Jen Hunter, our Senior Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So come on and hang out with us today as we join in incredible conversations to discuss the journey of women and our shared experiences while also painting by numbers. Okay, ladies, so who in here is confident in their artistic abilities and who isn't? We've put these amazing pictures in front of you to have to paint. A big part of this is to kind of discuss and think about our creative processes, right? Can some of you talk about just your creative outlets and what do you use to really express yourself?
I like to think I'm creative in the sense of I feel like I can curate the best playlist for anybody. I feel like I can meet you for the first time and get a good vibe, and I can curate the best playlist for you.
I would say that the creative part of me really goes into problem solving. Like I love the challenge of doing something cheaper, faster, more efficient. Just seeing that there is always a solution for everything. That is where I really think I can apply my creative side.
I love that, Naira, actually, because thinking about it in a work sense, right, professionally, I feel like I'm a lot more confident saying I'm creative in that sense. For me, right, in sales, when we get to know our fans, they use our tickets in so many different ways. And so for me, it's kind of a fun, creative way just to figure out, kind of thinking outside of the box of your regular full season package and seeing how you can use our tickets, essentially. But yeah, I love that in terms of a professional setting. I feel like I'm more creative and can express my creativity in a work setting more so.
I'd say it's bringing people together, which is rare, but because of the work that I do from community and communications, like I talk for a living in different facets, that like bringing people together and like knowing the different personalities that'll kind of bond and blend together. I think that's something creatively that I enjoy doing that's like an outlet for me.
So that's an interesting piece. You talked about creativity and also creativity in relation to your job. So let's do a fun fact real quick, okay? Let's do a real fun fact. So what was everyone's first job, okay? So I'll give my fun fact. So I knew I always wanted to have a career in sport. I was really fortunate at 17 years old as a senior in high school to get a volunteer opportunity with a professional team that allowed me to experience training camp, that allowed me to do all of these pregame and post-game activities with the youth in my city. And that just opened up a world of sports for me that I didn't know existed. So what's a fun fact for you all? What was your first job?
I actually worked in accounting at a chemical company. And I was responsible for paying bills. Like nobody said, you have to take these somewhere else. It was like people will call and say, my bills have not been paid, and I had the responsibility of paying them or saying no. And this company had a 90-day policy, and I will get these calls from people like, I cannot wait 90 days to be paid. I'm like, of course not, paid.
And now has that made you like super like everything's paid in advance, the process, like you call them and let them know the bill's too high, taxes already done, love it, proud of you.
And so, but that really sparked my love for entrepreneurs. And you can be an entrepreneur in any company, but entrepreneurs that take on innovation, that take on just being different, just going in a different path, you take a lot of risk doing that. Yeah. And so I respect them, and I love that there are people out there that want to do that.
Did that help inspire you to start your own business?
Yes. I think in the deep of my heart, I always wanted to do that, at least for a little while.
Mm-hmm. My first job was not nearly that interesting or technical, but I was a lifeguard and swim instructor, which I was really excited to do the second I turned 15 because they had the coolest sweatshirts. And I was like, I want one of those cool sweatshirts. My parents were like, great, get a job. So yeah, it was fun. I never had to make like a real aggressive save. Did it for like seven
really?
years, and yeah, it's fun. I think the biggest thing I learned from my first job is just like the importance of showing up on time, doing what you say you're gonna do, get your job done, work hard. If you don't know what you're supposed to be doing, ask. Try to like take initiative. That was good early lessons for me.
My first job was probably the most generic you can get. It was at an ice cream parlor, and I made it a habit to ask, like, okay, do you have a preference of which flavors on top or bottom? And the amount of times I was told I was appreciated for just asking that was shocking to me. But I think for me, that was kind of a good learning curve and learning point of, again, little details matter and are appreciated.
My first job was in a retail at the mall. It was terrible. I hated every second of it. But that is when I learned things that I don't like to do, which I feel like has been super pivotal in my career, trying things, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and that's kind of what led me continually back to events and operations.
I was a camp counselor at 13 with kids that were super close to my age. Let's not talk about child labor laws there. But it was an experience, I think, similar to sports where you jump in and you do whatever's needed. It's not your day-to-day is completely different, and that is my world now. And so I think now thinking back, even those experiences early on have gotten me to where I am today. So I was a camp counselor, and they would call me Miss Ashley, and I was like 14. It was really bad. It was really bad.
So let me ask you all this. We have just really, really busy schedules, right? So how do you all find that work-life balance? Like, how do you make sure that you feel okay with being able to have to carry so much, but also just feel like whole as a human?
For me personally, I think it's funny you asked that question now, because it was actually during the pandemic, and I think it was when we first started working from home, during that time where I felt for the first time ever in my career of I have no work-life balance. One thing I had to be so intentional about and learn about myself was creating physical boundaries with work. I had to get to a point where, it was our guest bedroom, I think was our office. I told myself it was a mental signal. The second I close this door, I'm home. And so for me, I think that was probably the first time where I really felt like there was no balance. But again, it forced me to draw some new boundaries and figure out what worked for me at the time.
I think a work-life balance sometimes is forced by your kids. They demand a lot, as they should. And so just thinking on what do I want to teach them? What do I want them to learn from life? And just knowing that they need you. That's what forces me to say, you know what? If I'm going to be here, I'm going to be present. If I'm going to be present, I'm going to enjoy the moment. So they help me seek that balance. And then just finding time for yourself. That helps balance a lot. So I wake up earlier than anybody else. I do speaking classes, and then I'm ready. I'm ready to give. I'm ready to give to the company. I'm ready to give to my family. So balance comes, I think, with centering yourself and finding time with it for yourself, and then giving to others as they need.
And boundaries.
Boundaries. Doors are amazing friends.
I'm still a work in progress. During the pandemic, I think it gave me a completely different perspective of creating those boundaries and demanding that space. I challenge myself every day to do it, and it may just be a moment in the car to myself.
The playlist.
And right, listen to a playlist and enjoying that moment, and spending that time with myself. But I don't have kids, so I don't have that boundary. I do have my husband. So sometimes there is a good door closed here and there just to have your space.
I don't have kids either. A dog has helped force the issue. But I think surrounding yourself with, strong people who you can trust and who you can rely on has helped as well. Just being able to put a lot of trust in your team and colleagues and have a really good support system both at home and at work kind of helps you to create that divide. Not always possible, but that has helped me a lot.
What's been work-life balance for me actually has shifted kind of in these different waves. You know, I went through the baking stage, I went through the cooking stage, I went through the workout yoga stage. Like I did every kind of phase that we had, but the key for me was really just finding time to explore whatever that was and just knowing that that was my time, whether it's vacation or that. And yeah, the kids piece, I have a teen, so it's a little bit different. She doesn't want to hang out with me anyway. But no, that the balance has been really important just for mental health and making sure that I'm okay. So did any of you ever have just kind of an aha moment of like, man, I'm working too much. I need to figure out some balance here. I know Ashley kind of talked a little bit earlier about, you know, that she's a work in progress, right? So that's fair. As really busy career women, like, did you just have a moment where you're like, I need to stop. I need to like really figure out what to do. Did anybody have like an aha moment like that?
I had like a really aggressive moment, but it was a long time ago. So I also realized like work life to me is more sort of an integration at this point. Like everything, you all are people I enjoy hanging out with and spending time with. And so when we're at games till 10 p.m., but I'm like chatting with people I like, it doesn't really feel like work. So there's like something really nice about that for me. And I think, but the moment for me was in 2008, early 2008. I had been working at 2 nonprofits and bartending, and I was just, so everything was work. Just like that was all I was doing. And I was eating at work and, you know, all of that, taking naps at lunch in my car. And like, just like, what am I doing with my life? And so I bought a one-way ticket, like took all my savings, bought a one-way ticket to Australia and was like, I'm like, something has to change here. And I can't do another winter on the East Coast. But then I got to Australia and started working at a nonprofit and bartending and like doing it all again. And I was like, maybe this is just like a thing of mine where I like build community in the jobs that I have and like the people that I'm around. And then like, I don't know, everything just kind of flows together in a weird way. Probably extremely unhealthy, but like works for me.
I feel like what we were saying with the pandemic, like it absolutely forced the brakes. And I don't know, when you don't have a constant, this next event, these things are happening, trying to put out this fire, solve this problem, like what is left can be a little bit shocking. What are your hobbies? What do you like to do? What are you without work? Yeah. I don't know, but I'm trying to figure that out. So I think that was a huge aha moment, and that has been super eye-opening for me. So now on this re-entry, there hasn't really been like a gentle reintroduction to this world again, but I think those things have helped me to kind of like understand when the balance is really shifting in the wrong direction, and at least I have some cues now to see if we can maintain a little bit better pace.
Especially in sport, you gotta love what you do because you're with these people almost 24 hours, 7 days a week. And so I think that's important when we talk about work-life balance. You know, the people you work with become a large part of your life. And so separating the two sometimes, like I think it's important you surround yourself with the right talent and the right group of folks so it becomes less of a heavy burden in a number of situations.
Absolutely. So second fun fact, women being introverts in a male-dominated industry, how do you balance that? Like, how do y'all balance that? I can say for myself, it's funny because people just think I'm like the most extroverted person. I've learned how to be because of this industry, but like at the end of the night, I'm still like, but I worry about that for women in the sports industry, right? Like, how do you grow in your career? How do you seem confident if you're introverted and not have to completely flip that, you know?
It's really important to me to make sure that we're recognizing how people communicate and what they bring to the table, because if you're only listening to the loudest voice or only listening to the things that are popping up every time you have a conversation, you're only getting part of the story. And I also find that the more that you encourage people to speak up and make room for their voice, like it comes forward more frequently after that because they feel more comfortable in that space and they feel like their opinion matters. And so not being an introvert, that's been really hard for me because I'm definitely the loudest voice in a lot of rooms. But it's been a huge learning experience for me, and I think it's been probably one of the most important since becoming a leader.
I am an extrovert in the sense of I do get energy from other people, but I can also be really shy in the right settings. But if there are days where I'm just drained or tired and can't really show up, I still feel that pressure to be on. Again, because I'm the only female in my department, and I don't want to come off as, well, she's not speaking up, and I also feel the pressure of, you have your seat at the table, don't waste it.
Knowing that you belong and knowing that you have a seat at the table for a reason. I mean, our C-suite, our senior executive team are majority women. And you don't see that in particularly around the NBA where it's male dominated. And so we are the vocal crowd, but I think that provokes change in decision making. And, it's something unique in sport that you don't see. And women at all ages, women of all races. And that's something I think that is empowering to me.
All right, y'all, so you know what time it is? It's actually time for our art check-in. Not gonna look at mine, but want to see where you all are.
Do we though?
Yours is good.
I think you should show Allie and Krista's. Oh, I can't even see.
There's like dimension.
Oh, I can't see.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still outlining.
Just show everybody that way. Oh, you start. So I think that speaks to people, though. Just how everyone has different approaches to just the simplest thing, and I think that says a lot about us. Like how we lead. Do you start on the outside? Do you sketch it out? Where do you? I'll have to look into it.
So again, here's Ashley giving us all the great segues unintentionally, right? So if there is no right way to do it, right? There's all these different paths. Are you all on the path that you thought you would be on, and would you change anything?
It was a bumpy road, a lot of segues, but I do think this is where I kind of, if you can dream where you want to be when you're a kid. I've always loved events. I've always loved planning. I was, as little girls often get called, kind of bossy. I've definitely seen that kind of come full circle for me in a lot of ways. But yeah, in high school, college, working in just different spaces, smaller events, productions, wherever I could fit myself in, I would always just find myself gravitating towards events. So being able to be in this space around sports, entertainment, you have to be such a specific kind of person. You can have a million personality types, but you have to be so dynamic in your own way to be able to thrive in this space in sports and entertainment. And like we've been saying, being able to be surrounded by those people, inspired by those people, and have them to be challenging you and supporting you has been just pretty incredible.
And it's rare. That's something I think in our space we take for granted. Sometimes we have a lot of amazing women in here, and Jen told me not to curse, so I'm not going to do it. But we work very, very hard and do a really good job. And when I talk to peers in other markets, it's very unique. There are not a lot of women in leadership. There are not a lot of women at the helm of our events. But because we're in our bubble and it's our norm, it's it's a good feeling and thing we're able to be a part of every day. So, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I definitely knew I was going to work in sports. I thought I was going to be the first woman NFL player. Didn't work out. I'm 5'4". But in my mind, I was like, I can do it. So I went out for the football team my freshman year of high school, and my parents called that school and said, absolutely not. And they were like, she cannot play football. And I was so mad at them. But I knew, at 14 that I was gonna have some kind of career in sport, but clearly it wasn't gonna be of the physical kind. And so in terms of the path though, I mean, my career has taken me in so many different directions, and I've learned so much and just gathered so many experiences that I feel just blessed to be in this space with you all. So with that, okay, another question. I talked about my desire to play football. Sports is still a male-dominated industry across every industry. We're in the NBA. It's a lot better than most, but we still have a ways to grow. So we've talked a little bit today just about, being introverts, being women, balancing our work life, having that work-life balance. But when we really think about a male-dominated industry, what advice do you give women out there? I'm not even going to say younger women, but just women. Maybe you're mid-career and you really have been wanting to get into sports. Like, what advice do you give them to just take that leap and try?
To go for it. I mean, if you do not do something, then it'll never happen.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Hey. Oh my God.
Right?
That's so good.
That's so good.
So good.
I interrupted you. Keep going.
No, that's fine. I always think about the Spanish one that we say that it's the no is already there. What if you get the yes?
Yeah.
Right? So, which is about the 100% shot.
But what do you tell people about the fear? The fear that, you have women that may come on interviews and just feel like they're going to pick a man anyway. I'm just here so that they can say that we have diversity in the interview process. They're going to pick a man. How do you get women to overcome that fear? Because that's real. They call it imposter syndrome, right? Where you feel like you're not there. Not to say to the men out there watching that imposter syndrome is not a thing for you, but in our sport industry, we see that a lot in women. So what advice do you give women to not have that fear or feel like they're not supposed to be in the spaces or in the rooms?
You got to know that you belong. You have to know that you belong. You have to know your worth. And you've got to take the risk. I've had more no's than I've had yeses. But if I didn't get those no's, I wouldn't be where I am today. There were doors closed, but know that you're here for a reason. Take your seat at the table, scoot up even closer, and just be confident in that and sit in it and know that you have, lean on other women. You have to do that and take that no and go get your yes.
But there's something there about, I was joking with you earlier about manifesting things, but I have journals from the last 20 years of my life that are, one of them describes my husband. One of them describes my job. It's crazy. Just writing down what's important to you, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And even if you forget about it.
Right. And sometimes for women, it's very difficult to show up and be extra confident because, I come from a culture that is a little bit different than the United States, and it's a little bit more male-dominated. So what is expected of a woman whenever I was growing up, completely different. So what I learned to do is sometimes I fake it until I make it.
Yep, absolutely.
Right? And because it's just like whenever you get dressed, if you get dressed nicely, you act in a different way as if you're going in with your PJs. Sometimes you just say, okay, what do I want to portray? And then you yourself start believing it. And then you get that self-confidence. And maybe it is cheating a little bit, but sometimes you just have to do that.
Obviously it's a lot of pressure, but yeah, you're creating that role, creating the expectation, and creating that path essentially.
And having to show up in those moments.
Exactly. Yeah.
That is, it's so real. This role, and I'm grateful, was created for me, but I'm the first. So what it looks like and what every day I'm still figuring out as I go. Every day is different, and and Jen has taught me this, giving myself grace. I'm only as good as the people around me, and we have to grow each other as women, but trust me, I'm still learning every morning, every day, but you have to show up.
That's what people don't understand, that women have to constantly have those back and forth conversations with one another of checking what I want to do in the space versus who I am and being authentic to who I am. This is tough. It's a good segue into my next question then for you all. So thinking about that, we are in Portland, and so we have kind of that luxury to be our authentic selves, come in the way that we want to. I've definitely have some colleagues that work at places where they still have to wear pantyhose in the winter, right? Everybody's faces just froze. Not gonna call out this place, but I know a very lucrative organization in sport where the women still have to wear pantyhose from basically October until March. So what's our hope for women, right? When I think about that, right, I don't want to have to police our bodies or police how we want to dress or show up, right? So what is our hope for women in this industry? Like, what is the real sincere hope? I can kind of lead here of like my hope. I have seen the growth. So in this 20 plus year span of my time in sport, I've definitely seen the growth and of seeing women in amazing positions and powerful positions and beyond just the broadcasting.
And I'll be speaking from the front office perspective, but I simply just hope we see more women in our sales positions. But I do have to credit, our director, Joe Easy, for Inside Sales. He's very intentional and acknowledges that and recognizes that, but sales has completely changed in terms of the approach. And it's so relationship driven. It's so, listening with the intent to understand rather than with the intent to respond. And I personally feel like women kind of have that innate characteristic already, right? And so a lot of people don't even consider sales as an opportunity. But for me, another thing is it's like sales is one of the most powerful positions, in terms of how you control your money. You get with how much you give. And I think for me, that's where I was envious of the men, especially in my department, right? Like, you have the opportunity to earn as much as you want. I want that opportunity too. And so I think there's a lot of power behind that.
So we're going to close out, and I just want us to really finish with something hopeful and just something that people can walk away with. What are y'all excited about when it comes to sport?
I'm excited about the power of sports and the progressiveness, in particular the NBA. And we touched on that earlier. Like, we still have a lot of work to do, but very progressive in the growth and the opportunity that I see. And just the power. I mean, you think about the bubble and the impact that was made in that short amount of time. Like, it's just a powerful force that everyone is connected to in some shape, form, or fashion. I think that speaks to sports and entertainment. So for us to be able to work on that platform and make change, that's exciting to me. A part of my new role is impact.
To know that I have the opportunity to break a barrier like you all did is all motivation enough, I think, for me specifically. And I know all of us here are not done breaking barriers, at least with the Blazers, right? We're the first at something.
But no, I think that's exciting because the flip side of that, I am going to retire one day and be in Florida, and it's not going to be too far from now. And to know that the women that I'm surrounded with that are next, like leaders, I feel good walking away from it because I know, like, if we've gotten it this far, there's no stopping it. So to know, like, to work with you and have these moments, like, I'll know when I'm on the beach in West Palm Beach Gardens, I'll call Melissa up and tell her I want to come out to a game and she'll take care of me. Right, I want to sit courtside. She'll take care of me. No, so that's exciting.
So my excitement is just to see the growth, not only of this group, but the women in our organization as a whole. And it's the continued growth of our women fan base and also our male allies that support us in our organization externally. Just amazed about what we have in the future and what's coming. And so that brings us to the end of what we were discussing today. Rip City, we hope you learned a lot about the women in our organization, the amazing things that they do, and all of the hopes and dreams that we hope to bring to you all in the future. So look out for all of these amazing women, and shout out to all of the Trailblazer women and Rose Quarter women here. Thank you.